Welcome to Building Healthy Relationships, the 4 Habits podcast, helping you enjoy better harmony at home, thrive at work, and win at life. Here are your hosts, Dr. Andrea and Jon Taylor-Cummings, recognized authorities on the subjects of improving work relationships and cultures, as well as couple and home relationships.
Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to our guests around the world, whatever time zone that you are listening in on. Great to have you, and I hope the year's kicked off well for you. We're in our next of the series of our podcast, and today we have as our guest Naima Charlier. Naima, welcome. So good to have you.
Thank you. It's really lovely to be here talking this morning to you both. Thank you.
Yep, we are looking forward to this conversation about creating environments that people can thrive in. But before we do that, we want to give you the proper introduction, give our guests a peek into your background. So, John, why don't you share that bio with us?
I always get the privilege of doing this.
Yes, you do.
Alrighty, so here we go. So Naima Charlier is passionate about creating environments where everyone feels a sense of belonging. With 27 years of global experience in education and school leadership, she has dedicated her career to fostering inclusion, equity, and innovation in teaching. Growing up in the UK as the daughter of an Indian Muslim father and a Scottish Christian mother, quite a combination there, Naima developed a deep understanding of the importance of belonging, a theme that has shaped her professional journey. Her career has taken her across the UK, the US, Romania, and Hong Kong, where she was instrumental in founding 3 international schools. In leadership roles such as Deputy Principal and Director of Teaching and Learning, she focused on how teachers teach and how to create environments where children thrive. Now, as Director of Equality, Diversity and Inclusion and Social Responsibility at Wellington College, Naima continues to champion inclusive and inspiring spaces for students and staff alike. Naima holds a B.Ed in English and an MBA in International Educational Leadership from UCL, that's University College London, where she researched the question, why aren't more women holding senior leadership roles in schools? She's also a board member of the Inclusion and Equity Leadership Association and a sought-after speaker on education, culture, and leadership. So as we were saying, quite a background, lots and lots and lots to dive into there.
And, Naima, there's nothing like a lived experience to really have the right perspective and insight into creating these environments that people can thrive, while the rest of the world is getting bent out of shape over the words diversity, equity, and inclusion. People have to live in that space and make spaces that work for people to really flourish. Can we start out? There's so many directions I want to take this, but can you give us an insight into your experience? Anything that you're willing to share about the backstory that brought you to this place, this passion that you have for intentionally creating environments where people from all backgrounds can thrive?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, whenever you hear a bio, you just feel such a fraud. It's just
So who is that wonderful person?
so high and mighty. But I worked out this is my 28th year teaching, and I think I'd probably start with teaching. So I went into teaching 22. I also did 4 years of the Ed as a 4-year course. So actually, there's 2 years in schools now. And I always loved it. I just loved working with young people. They have always made me laugh. They've always just been great people to be around. I have never clock watched.
Wow.
I love my job. I love working in schools. I don't understand why everybody doesn't. Well, I do understand things as well. But from the beginning, that first year that I went to a school in London that was an inner city school, lots of challenges for the students in that school, and lots of challenges for me as the new teacher. And I remember they said to me after I got the job, there's so and so who's not come out from under the table for the last year, and there's so and so that there's some issues, and people were coming over as refugees, and they were coming over from different backgrounds, and they came from a housing estate across the street, the majority of them, and it was just delightful from the beginning because I loved them and they loved me. We had a really good relationship, and they all went on such massive journeys in their learning. And even though when I look back and I realized, you know, there were so many things that I couldn't help them with, that I didn't have the skills, I was too new in my career. But I could see the progress they were making. I could see the difference that I was making, and I just really enjoyed it. And each one of them was just an individual and special and funny and interesting. And I had that special experience that was then replicated in the other schools that I've been to. So I did a couple of years in London. I really wanted to travel. I love travel. I think maybe that comes from my dad, who left Pakistan for the UK. I found out recently without telling his mother.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
He wasn't supposed to go. And my mummy left Scotland and went to England. So I think maybe it's in my blood to travel. But I went to the US, and again, I taught in a school where the children were experiencing lots and lots of challenges. And some people, I think they can find it very, very difficult to deal with them. But for me, I was just very interested and very, very focused on how I can make it better and more exciting and more interesting. And that love of teaching and the love of wanting to see children love school. I had that from a very young age. Children should love school. It should be amazing. They should just be having the best time of their lives. And I've kind of carried that everywhere that I've been. And as I progressed through my career and I've had slightly more influence and opportunities to take leadership roles and to affect change and to say, well, actually, I'm not sure this is the right thing. Can we change this? And, you know, I've captured more understanding of systems and processes and the art and the science of what I do. I've been able to then make changes to try and make it a better experience for children. But I think when you say, where does it come from? It comes from that love and connection with young people and teaching, and the difference that teachers make.
Well, so, some might say, though, your passion, I mean, your passion is very clear and evident, but some might say you've had it easy. I know when we were catching up before the show here, you mentioned an experience that you had, I think, when you did some teaching in the US, where it was a slightly more challenging environment. So tell us just a little bit about that there, so people know you haven't just had a nice easy ride with all the nice polite kids sitting down.
No, I mean the same for the schools in London and in Sheffield. They were not easy schools. These were children that came from difficult backgrounds. And the school in the US, it was actually situated in South Fulton County. I don't know if anyone knows in Atlanta. So it was a school where a lot of the children were coming bust in from housing projects, where their backgrounds and what they were experiencing was, I had children who had experienced abuse, I had children whose parents were in jail, I had children who struggled to emotionally regulate, so children held back. It was an environment where we had like a bell on the wall that we could ring. People would come, and there were big sort of, I'd say they were bodyguards, they were teaching assistants of a kind, but there was some physical restraint of children who struggled to regulate and to follow the processes and the rules in a school that keeps everybody sort of on track. And it was challenging. And I remember I had one boy who his story was, it broke my heart. His story was his parents had gone to jail, and his grandfather had been tasked with looking after him and his younger sister, and they'd said they'd take the younger sister but not him. And he was in my class, and he was taller and bigger, and he did have a temper, but he was such a sweet boy. And I think in my youthful teaching stage, we formed a bond. There was a connection, and it was maybe not the most helpful thing for him. And I remember we moved him to another class to see if that would be better, and he struggled with his reactions, and there was just so much within me that felt a bit helpless of how to help and do what was needed. And I had, children who had experienced abuse, and the parents were, one of the girls, the foster parent, was not supportive at all. I think she said something like she should be beaten or something. It was kind of her fault, and this was not the case. So there was some difficult circumstances within that school around behaviour, and also around engagement with children that that didn't have the nurturing care around them in the way they should. And then there were families in that school that absolutely were, and they did, and there was a mixture within that school of people from different backgrounds, but this big group of children were coming from quite difficult circumstances. And I came out, it was an organization that brought in international teachers into the Deep South specifically. And
Wow.
it's clear that in the US, there were quite large population groups that just hadn't encountered people from different countries in the world. And it was about international understanding and cultural, wasn't a cultural exchange, but it was from people from different backgrounds would come over. And the school that I was in, it was largely an African-American community. The way that the school system in Atlanta was at the time, I don't know if it still is, but it had sort of a racial divide, which I found very strange coming from the UK and from London, where we were very sort of multicultural. But this was majority of the students in my class, so maybe 24 students were African-American background and maybe 1 or 2 white children. And the same on the staff body. Most of my colleagues were African-American, the leadership team were, the county level were. So it was like a whole community that was very different to what I had known before.
And I want to jump in on that, because there's so many themes that you've pulled out that I'd love to dive into. Something you said earlier, you believe that school should be amazing for everybody, and this love of learning, and also this love of connecting with people. In an environment like you went to in the school in Atlanta, where there are these serious challenges, and as you say, people who can't regulate their own emotions and their behavior, how did you establish that one-on-one connection? How did you use relationships to help create that safe space to help students settle in and be able to thrive? What was it that you did personally to build bridges and engage in meaningful ways?
I think with all children and all schools, the connection is around caring about each individual and wanting to know about them, and for them to know that you do care about them and you have their interest at heart. So it is about, you want them to have that education and to follow the curriculum and do well in their exams, but it's much broader than that. You also want them to be happy and thrive as they do that. So, things like having boundaries and rules in place that you are consistent with, but that come from a place of caring and kindness, and not from a place of you just have to do it because I say so. So, and getting them to sort of to understand that and to believe that, but also the some of the things that I found when I worked there was this seemingly disconnect between how to make things engaging so that young children want to do them, versus you just have to do this, and this is being done to you. So that autonomy, and children feeling they have agency in what they're doing. So we had a science curriculum that the state provided all the resources to do all these different experiments, and they also provided textbooks and worksheets, and everything was kind of very prescriptive, which I found strange coming from the UK, where you create all your own and you have lots of agency over what you do as a teacher. So I found those two worlds difficult. But I wanted the children to have fun. So I asked the other teachers to give me their boxes of equipment. I got some of the children who wanted to volunteer to unpack them all. We turned an empty classroom into a science lab, and they put on their coats and they put on their goggles, and we did some of the experiments. And I think it's that engagement with, well, where are you? What do you need? And can I meet you where you are, even though I've got this knowledge of where you need to get to? I'm the adult here. I've got the understanding of the journey you need to go on. But you are part of that. You're not just going to do what I say when I say, and I'm going to try and explain that to you. So I'd say that was really key. The relationship between a teacher and the students, that they know that there's a care and compassion there, and it's a both way, and that also that they've got some agency and some control over what they're doing, which is not the same as letting them do what they want.
And all the words, all the principles that you've described there for the school, for children, are just as applicable in the world of grown-ups where we go to big school called companies that we work for.
But before you go there, I actually want to build on that point there
Okay.
and actually bring that into the home setting, because I think a lot of parents will be listening to this thinking, yeah, that's great in the school setting. The teachers have the experience, they have the training to work with the kids, they have the time. Well, I put that right. They're working with the kids all day long, so that they have time in that context. Me as a parent, I'm home, I'm busy, I've got to put food on the table, I've got to go to work, etc. My time is more limited. What of those learnings can we share with the parents to help them establish some of those connections as well? Because the role of the parent in the home is vital, if not more important, in the sort of development of the child, I would think, and the development of the child, to have that whole rounded person out there who goes to school, who turns up in the world out there. What guidance would you give, or would you suggest for parents who are trying to do their bit to establish that connection with their young people?
Yeah, I think it's the same starting point. It's the starting point of love and compassion, which I think as a parent, it's built in. You love your child.
Yep.
They're very precious, and they're outside of you.
At least in the early days. At least in the early days, before they start behaving badly.
Oh, you still love them anyway. I think it's
Absolutely.
acknowledgement that they're people, and they are coming packaged with their own free will, their own personality, their own need for autonomy. And yes, we have stages and phases that they go through, and it wouldn't be safe to just let them do what they want. Of course not. But it's how do we get that balance right? And where is that flex as a parent between this is what needs to happen for you, i.e. bedtime, doing your prep and your homework or whatever it might be, and you having some control and choice over what you are going to do with your time, and also accepting they are going to push back. They are going to try and do what they want to do. You talked about going to big school and going to companies. Similarity. People want to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Where you have consistency and clarity over what good looks like, whether that's in school or in a company or maybe even in a family unit. What are we rewarding? What are we saying? This is excellent. And it's a true definition of excellence or good. It's not just the, oh, yes, that's lovely, with no real explanation for, well, what about it makes it lovely, or what about it makes it good. So that clarity that you establish, I think, as a parent and a child, depending on the age of them, of, well, what does good look like here? What is it that we're going to praise and we're going to celebrate? And then what are the things that no, that can't happen, and the why of why they can't happen? Having maybe that clear can be helpful. But consistency in terms of what you deliver as a parent. I say I've got 2 children myself, so I'm fully aware that sometimes
Got that t-shirt
can get in the way. And it's the same for everybody. We should never lose our emotional regulation. We should never be truly angry with a young person. But of course we are. Of course that does happen, because we're humans. We're flawed. We will be. But ideally, we're not angry. And if we can manage in our relationship to couch our terms of how we're speaking to the young people, the children, with like, we know that you have this value, you know that you're a really lovely person and that you're really great at doing X, but you've just done Y, and that's not okay, because it's whatever we've agreed, that's not okay. And I hold the line, and the consequences, whatever you decide the consequences are, we definitely need consequences. There's no freedom to do what we want without consequence. That's not a good thing to teach our children about. Yeah. There has to be a consequence, and it's okay that the child will kick back and not like that. They won't enjoy the consequence. They won't like what you're telling them to do, but your job is to hold the line and to make it as safe as possible for them to grow. And
clarity and consistency, we hear those loud and clear. And the other thing that you demonstrated rather than said it, you might have used the word once, is curiosity. I love where you said, you know where they need to get to, you know the journey they need to go on, but you want to know, where are they now, and what is it that they're seeing in their world, their own interpretation of life, of challenges, of what they need to meet them where they are and carry them on that journey. And I love that, because it resonates on so many levels. as a teacher in a school, as a parent at home with kids, especially when they get into the teen years. But also, I'm going to go right back there in the workplace when you have people from very different lived experiences needing to thrive in the organization. How do you meet them where they are and help them become the person, the leader, the employee that they can be? Any thoughts on that you want to expand?
Grown-up children now.
It's a grown-up. Well, you know,
Yeah,
we
they're
kind
in the
of
workplace.
we still have the same emotions that we need to know how to regulate. And just because you're taller and older doesn't mean you've learned that. You know, you might still see some of the same behaviors and challenges of, you know, experience being abused even in the workplace. So none of that context necessarily changes. Anyway, I've said loads. Naima, your thoughts?
There's a lot in that. I mean, we talk in the education world sometimes of the black box. Dylan William talks about this idea of like understanding where a student is at with their learning, that you don't know what's going on with you. We talk in sort of diversity and inclusion world about sort of the iceberg model and what's hidden versus what's known, and the differences that come from different cultural backgrounds or different cultural experiences. We talk about values and how people live their values and what those values might be. I always find this interesting in education because educationists tend to share the same values with people like the police, the army. But again, it's different in different cultures. And we talked about that school in the US and the communities I was part of. There was a different cultural understanding and value around noise levels, I would say, from a British perspective. we had I had an experience of, okay, there's a lot of noise in this assembly, and that's okay. There's a lot of noise in this piece, and that's okay. You transfer to an English setting where I was teaching before, and it would be the noise level would be down significantly.
Yeah, exactly. That would not be okay.
Judging that, and they're saying, well, you know, that's bad or that's good behaviour, but that's not fair. There's a difference in what good looks like for people.
Yeah.
And it's also the element of you don't know what you don't know. You see the lens of, you see the world through your own lens, through your own perspective. I taught a subject called Global Perspectives in Hong Kong, which is an amazing subject, and it's very much trying to look at big global issues through the multiple perspectives of, you know, different cultures, different backgrounds, different countries, different ages, different stages, just how we can all look at the very same thing and take different elements from it. And we don't know what we're all interpreting. We don't know what's going on within. So from a teaching perspective, we need to know where people are at and what they're thinking, so we can teach them the next stage without frustration creeping in or without it being too hard. From a child's perspective, if they don't know where they stand, they don't feel safe, because if you can't work out what the norms are, what the rules are, and it's something unclear, and if you have to have a neurodiversity, which can make it even harder for you to understand and interpret what are the norms in this office that I've now gone into, or this new environment that I'm in, or this classroom with this new teacher, or whatever it is, it's very hard to know, well, how is everyone feeling? So one of the things I talk about when I'm talking with teachers about how we set ourselves up to make an inclusive culture is, well, it's very difficult when you've got different classes coming through, like a secondary setting where you've got class after class after class, to find out all about all those individuals. But what you can share is something about yourself, that you're really tuned in to that element of, we don't know how people are, how things are landing with everyone. We don't know if it is working for you. So let's be really clear that the relationship you have with me is, I'm a safe person to tell things to. You can tell me, you can feedback. I do want to know. I do want to know if it works for you or it doesn't work for you. I do want to have that relationship. And when you've got our parent hats on, we hope that we're having that relationship with our child. Our child, particularly if they're a teenager, might not say anything, and all the signals you get from that child might be that they don't believe it, but they are listening and they do know, and it will be sinking in. And it's the accumulation. It's the accumulation of all those little raindrops of moments when they interact with you, or when, you know, a work setting, you're interacting with colleagues, and you make it really clear that you live your values, that you are authentically a caring, compassionate person with empathy. You might not know everything about a person's cultural background or their norms, but you're a person that would be very interested I wouldn't want that to be a barrier for you flourishing and having the best life possible. You're the person that would want to have those good, strong relationships where the other person or the child or whoever can thrive.
And what's really sorry, were you going to ask something?
Well, no, I was going to make a comment, but go on.
I was going to say what's really poignant, especially in this moment, about what you just said, is it's what you believe on the inside. It's the care, the compassion, the interest that you have personally that then gets lived out. And I say that because I know, with the US pulling back on the DEI agenda and firms saying they're not signed up to that anymore.
Just for our audience, just depending on when they're listening in on this, when here we are in January 2025, and the Donald Trump has just been inaugurated as president just this week of the US 47th president, I think it is, and lots of organizations talking about pulling back from their DEI agenda. Just establishing the context here for when people are listening in.
Good shout.
DEI at the moment is under scrutiny.
Well, the point I was going to make with that is those firms that really believed paying attention to bringing in more diversity is great for their bottom line, who understand equity and giving equal access for everybody and putting the effort in to see where people are and adjustments or obstacles that might need to be removed to help people get to the place of being able to thrive and creating this environment that's really inclusive. If that's something they believed on the inside, whatever the move in society is, they'll still live that out. If they never signed up to it in the first place, that's just an excuse to drop that pain off the agenda so they can focus on, in their minds, other things that really matter. So what I was picking up on was the passion that you have is there, whatever the policies or the rules of different schools or different environments that you're in will be. I don't know if there's a question there. I just love the fact that you believe it and so you live it wherever you are. Inclusion is a part of your DNA.
I don't know how you can't. This is the bit that baffles me, although maybe less so than why everyone isn't a teacher. I do understand that. There's lots of elements where I absolutely understand that, but everybody is different. I mean, it's absolutely an obvious statement. Everybody's different. And when you work with our younger people, so children in schools, and you see those differences play out in front of your eyes, and you see all the different parts of each individual and how their perspectives and their interaction and their experiences and the barriers they might face as they go through their life, they will need something different to help them to make the same contribution and to live the life they want to live. And if you talked about from a business sense, if you want to have the best possible workforce who are thriving and bringing their true self to the party, then you don't want a homogenous culture or a monoculture where everybody is just coming from the same background, thinking the same thoughts and living the same experience. How on earth are you going to have innovation and creativity?
Indeed.
And how are you going to solve problems? How are you going to get creative if you're all just in a little echo chamber of agreeing with each other about the same things? You need people to be able to think differently and to bring those different thoughts, which is not the same as saying that as what we talk about with the students, it's not having this line where we've got the right thinking on one end and the wrong thinking on the other end, and everyone should just yell at each other across the divide.
Indeed,
yeah. Complex and nuance. Everyone's coming from the place of love, you would hope, and they love the same things. They love their family. They love to live the life they want to live in a good way. We hope they want to interact with other people. But they are going to meet the world in different ways, and they are going to have different things that factor in. But if you don't acknowledge that some of those differences are going to cause barriers to participation, and then you don't do anything to try and erase some of those barriers to participation, you're not going to have every different person joining in and being able to thrive and flourish. And I don't understand why you wouldn't want that. That baffles me. So I forgot. I think you didn't ask a question. But...
Didn't we? I think we're talking around the same point.
But I've got one. I mean, you what I heard you saying earlier was around the importance of connecting with individuals on an individual level, connecting with people, I should say, on an individual level. But you said when you are in a school environment, let's take that for a moment, and the same could be in a work setting, you've got lots and lots of different people coming at you all the time, and different classes coming through, and they're all different groups each time. How do you get to know so many people? What I heard you say was start with yourself, share a bit about yourself, maybe be authentic, be vulnerable. And my question was, what tips do you have for how to do that? Because I guess a lot of people will have this fear of, if I'm being vulnerable, I go share things about myself that can then be used against me. Maybe that's not a good thing to do. How do you do that in a way that is safe, but still demonstrates a little bit about yourself while you're taking the time to get to know the people? Because ultimately, you've got to get to know the individuals. But on that journey, what are some of the things that you can be doing that allow you to share vulnerably, authentically, in a safe way? Any thoughts on that?
It comes down to what your own personal values are. If I worked with some young students, we talked about what leaders look like and do leaders, and we always get this confident people are leaders. And it's like, well, could you be confident and be a bad leader? And at the time they were quite young, and they were saying, no, if you're confident, you're a good leader. Truly believe that if that's part of your values, that actually just being really confident and sure that you're right all the time is actually something that's really important to you, then you're probably not going to be listening and thinking about this anyway. But if you're more in that space of, everyone's a work in progress, you can't possibly know you just can't know everything. Even the most competent, capable, most intelligent person is going to have areas where they're stronger and areas where they just don't see things, or they're blind spots, or they're not their speciality. So somebody needs to help you and complement that. And if you truly believe that the best expertise is the entire room, is everybody together, and that will be stronger than just you alone, then you are going to need other people. So if you start and accept that you need more than just yourself, you are no man is an island. You're not just one, you're many. And then you also believe in compassion and goodness and kindness, and that's where people come from. And I think that's what my beliefs sit on. I just genuinely believe that most people are good people. Then everything else flows quite naturally from that, because then you're just being yourself. And it's not the case of saying, well, I'm going to lead on this project and I'm going to start by saying I don't know anything about it, but maybe leading with the conversation where you open the door to other people giving their thoughts on it, rather than certainty at all times. It's more of an exploration of, we're in this area, potentially some of our thoughts are around, this might be the right course of action. Are there any thoughts in this area, or is there anything that we haven't thought of, or could there be another way of looking at this? And you create opportunities where you're still leading, you're still coming from the point of drawing everybody together and giving opportunity for people to iterate and problem solve. But you're giving space, genuine space, for other people to share thoughts that might be different to yours, and hear them and maybe reflect back on them before then potentially making a decision to go in a particular direction with certainty and with assurance that this is the direction we're going to go in. I'm going to lead us there after I've consulted with everybody. And if we're still wrong at that point, that's fine. We'll assess, and we'll see what the impact was, and we'll try and measure that in some way. And maybe we need to change direction again. But for now, we're going this way. And you can all be sure that that's okay. We've made that decision, and I'm going to take us there.
That's taking us into a space that I think, especially in the corporate world, is still maybe new and uncomfortable, and we're growing into the new suit of compassionate leadership, of bringing your humanity into the workplace, and not just being so hard-nosed, focused on the bottom line, that the only thing you're interested in is the technical skills and expertise that people are bringing, and not having the language or even the skills necessarily to engage with people so openly, so vulnerably, so inclusively. I think that's a growth journey that we're on, and compassion is something that's finally turning up in the workplace? What are
Okay,
the
I love how Naima packaged that before your question comes in, which was giving the space for others to share ideas, even where they're different to yours. I think that just packages it beautifully there. Because quite often, I think in leadership roles, a lot of people think, "Well, I'm the leader. Here are my ideas. Go do them," kind of a thing.
those are the instructions.
Actually, instructions, general mode, rather than I'm leading here. We're on this journey, but I need to get your different inputs so that we can go on the journey in the best possible way. Going back to what you said earlier about no man's an island, but I think the African proverb, I think it is the African story, which is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. It's absolutely that point there. If we want to achieve something great and fantastic here, how can I get different inputs that might be in my blind spots, the things that I'm not seeing, bring those to the table here so we can go forward.
So the question I want to ask then is, for the leader who traditionally might have led that way, very directive and, focused on technical expertise, they still have this pressure of delivering to the bottom line, but they're now more aware of the need to bring more humanity into the workplace, more compassion, more insight into different people's particular needs so that they can each thrive. What are the things that you would encourage that individual, that leader, to focus on, to be more compassionate, to engage better, to really show genuine care for the people around them? How can they make that move in that direction?
Yeah, I think one of the simplest things is listening. It comes up time and time again, but actually listening, the intent to hear and learn, not to respond. I think just taking time then to do that, because it does take time. Making relationships takes time. So if you're not prepared to put the time in, you're going to find it much harder, and it's probably going to be less successful. But if you can find the time to hear people's stories, to learn something about them, to have a conversation that goes beyond the transactional, I need you to do this here and now, then the value of that and what comes back to you will be greater. I think the proverb is absolutely correct. If you only will direct someone to get it done in the way you want and get it done now, of course it will happen quickly, but the risks are enormous. And I think particularly now with AI coming and taking all those computational tasks off our hands and doing things very fast and very efficiently, the humanity aspect that only humans will have to connect and to hear what someone's telling you about, about their day, about their family life, about the things that they worry about their hopes and aspirations, and have them truly believe that those you've listened, you care too. That person who's part of your team will work really well on the same goals that you've got. And if you've had clarity and you've shared together to create this vision of this is what we're doing, this is our mission, this is our vision, this is what we're all focused on right now. We've co-created it together. We're really sure about it. And you've got those relationships because you've listened, you've had those conversations, these people as people. Then all of you together are then working towards those targets in the most effective way possible. More time might have been taken out to have those human interactions, and that's okay. And I think allowing people time to have conversations and to focus on relationships, the same as allowing people time to think strategically, think deeply, think hard. Those things are really important if you want to do the job really well and have it truly embedded and last long. But also, if you want to be agile and respond to things quickly and see potential pitfalls and change direction, if you don't have those diverse perspectives that are happily and confidently feeding you information that maybe you might not like because it's pointing out you're going in the wrong direction, the end point will be harder for you because you will have gone further down the path efficiently and quickly in the wrong direction, possibly losing money or losing people or losing whatever it is your goal is on the way. And you will have gone so much further, so you'll have to pull it back so much further. So I think in terms of efficiency and time, it might feel less efficient to spend more time with people talking about people things. But the overall long-term goals of a culture that really truly values people and a culture that's all working towards the same goals, in the end, that's going to do you pretty well, I think.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, and it's that time efficiency thing that we need to. I think in leadership, we're still tethered to, what was it, Taylorism, where everything was broken down into bite-sized chunks and you try and make the process more and more efficient, and efficiency drove that. Now, as you said, innovation's driving it, and what that means is empowering people to be their most creative selves, because we don't even know what the problem's going to be. And you hit the nail on the head where the challenge is to do relationships well. It takes time, and there's no budget or what is it, P&L column in the balance sheet that says, the cost of investing time in relationships. Spot on with that. And yet we're going to hybrid and working remotely, and, teams that are geographically dispersed more than ever. Investing in the relationships is what will make the operations more efficient.
Absolutely. Just as you were speaking there, both of you speaking actually, the picture that came to my mind is of a team. It was actually a rowing team that came to my mind there. But actually, when you think about it, okay, I'll stick with the rowing one, because where I'm coming to is the point is what will make the boat go fastest.
Mm-hmm.
And there are two things there. You can either have building more muscle and building more skill in terms of actually the rowing, but you can also focus on building the commitment to the team, the commitment to each other, the drive, the sort of the connection between the team. And if you have the best skill in the boat, but people have different ambitions and different drives and different goals that they're working towards, they're not necessarily going in the same direction. So I think a lot of the leaders will focus just on the core skills of building the muscle, building the strength in the team, but actually forget about or deprioritize actually making the team work together as one, be aligned in their values and what they're trying to achieve, their goals, etc. So I think
Who
it's just
was
really
it?
prioritizing that.
Using the boat analogy, it was Stephen, somebody went, I think in one of the Olympic races, they said, if you have enough energy to speak to me at the end of the race, I will never speak with you again. It was this bought in all out commitment that we will give it everything we have, all of us together, to achieve this goal in the race. I didn't say that as eloquently as it did. I think it's the book, How Do You Make the Boat Go Faster? And it's that point of really committing to each other relationally about what they wanted to achieve together that helped them win the race.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying, Naima.
I think so. I mean, when I think back to Atlanta, which was so long ago, this was 2000. After then, I went to Romania. We did 10 years there, building a school, and then Hong Kong, new schools. Each move I made, each new experience, there were so many things went wrong in the early days, so many mistakes made, so many misunderstandings of the people element in particularly creating new schools where you don't have a school, so you're putting a team together, they don't know each other, you don't know the children, you don't know. So it's being involved in those teams and seeing what happens when it goes wrong and when it's not working for people, as well as, the learning journey on the way of going, well, actually, this works really well. And you can see that it works really well. And you can see the most successful iterations of building communities where people feel that pull and connection in the same direction. And when you were talking about the boat analogy, it reminded me of our wonderful head here was giving an example to the students of the sawing the tree down and not stopping to sharpen the saw. I think it's Kobe example.
Yep.
And we talked about just so busy doing what you're doing, you've got to do it as fast as possible and as efficiently as possible. If you don't stop and sharpen your saw, then you're just grinding away at the relentless task without being able to sort of come up and have that helicopter view and that pause and the consideration of, well, what is in the best interests of what we're trying to achieve, and have we got everybody working towards that in the right way and feeling those human feelings of, I want to pull in this direction. I want to make I don't want to be able to speak at the end of that boat journey, because that is so powerful. If you capture the heart of people, whether they're students or young people or whoever it is, if you know that love connection is there, that you're going to you really are bought into people care. This isn't just transactional. It's much more powerful. It has to be. There's more to us as humans than just doing the job for the sake of doing the job and getting the paycheck. It's
indeed.
Absolutely.
I'm conscious that we're
I
almost
was
out
going to
of
say
time.
there is so much more that we could talk about here, but we
I
can't
do
let
have
you
one.
go
I have one
without
more question.
can't let you go without talking about that. With which is the schools, the women in schools and leadership.
That's part of it.
All right,
Yeah.
well, you ask it then. See if we can package it in one.
Well, you just got my attention when you said, you set up a school in Hong Kong and in different locations internationally. What are the things that any tips on what you've been intentional about to create more of a focus on the relational, the compassion, the people element? And I don't know how you can weave in there, and why aren't more women leaders in schools in that conversation? But give us give us some tips on what are the things that you've been intentional about creating in the environment to make it successful in terms of caring for people.
Yeah, I mean, I learned so much. The team in Romania was a woman leading that, an amazing principal. The team in Hong Kong, there was our head there was a man, but we had women and men in the team. And then the school that I created, the last one was just a few years ago. I was given the task of opening this campus of this school and leading it from doing the architectural drawings to getting the first students and the first teachers in. So I did that's the journey end point of putting things into practice and being really intentional. And the biggest thing I did intentionally throughout that whole experience was co-creation. I co-created everything. I had the most amazing deputy head who, after the school was set up, I did 2 years till it was full, and then she took it over as head. And from the beginning, it was acknowledging people's expertise. They had so much expertise. It wasn't my particular area of expertise, the age of the children we were working with. Acknowledge their expertise and just make space for people to be decision makers at all levels. So all of the people involved in that project had their voices heard in terms of decisions that we were making, from both the micro to the macro, and the community of the parents right from the beginning, involving them in the conversations and the thinking process, as well as the young people, so that when you want to ask those questions around, is this working and to what extent is this working, you want to do that measurement of the satisfaction and happiness. They were really, really high, because, and I think it was because people felt that they could say what they wanted to say, and they felt they'd being a part of the creation of the end point. It wasn't, I'm going to do this now and I'm going to do it this way, and now you people are all working here with me. I hope, and I think that's certainly what the feedback I had from that team of people, that there was space and scope for people to contribute and to feel that they had ownership of it. It wasn't a place where they just were and I was in charge. It was, we were all doing it together. So that flattened leadership structure, as well as space and time for people to put their ideas into space, and for me to change my ideas when people told me things and I thought, well, no, that's really good, let's do that instead. Giving space for that to happen and not being precious about, well, I have this idea and I'm going to stick with my idea because I think it's better, because you don't know for sure.
I think what you're saying there, Naima, wraps it up beautifully. That co-creation is the panacea, the silver bullet for better outcomes in the school setting, setting up a new school there. Same thing in a home setting where you're getting the input from the children. Yes, you might still be leading when they're fairly young, but you're still getting their input in terms of where we're going, how is this working. The same thing that you need to be doing in a corporate setting, in a work setting. Pretending that you have all the answers is going to get you into trouble.
Yeah.
Especially in a global
global diverse world. So why not get the inputs and go on that journey? So much powerful. There's something, a different direction you're going to go.
No, but I'm saying from the conversation, there are 5 C's in my head. I just need a 6th one that would cover taking time to do relationships. So you spoke about curiosity, you spoke about compassion, you spoke about clarity, you spoke about consistency, and now the silver bullet with co-creation. What C can we have for going slow, taking the time to invest in relationships? I don't know, committed to relationship.
Character. There's a wonderful woman here, or two women actually doing work on character, and they're amazing. And the work we're doing on character and flourishing is really, really interesting. So I think having that, putting the human being at the heart of things and passion, maybe that fits well with that.
Yeah, really, character is such a big deal, and it's really about the character, who we need to become, who are we being in our relationships with people. So yeah, totally get it with character and maybe collaboration, but that goes to the co-creation. There's a collaborative element in that. So many other things that we could talk about.
Maybe looping it back to, I know we didn't really have time to talk about women in leadership. I think I started off talking or alluding to this kind of imposter syndrome element of it. But I think there's a massive part where what a leader looks like and what good leadership looks like can feel quite gendered. And people's ideas around leadership can be quite focused on that kind of certainty and leading from the front and power and autonomy and whereas the skills of being empathetic, compassionate, being a co-creator, being collaborative, enabling people to support you with their own critical thinking skills and their own, those can be quite skills that sometimes get undervalued by the women who hold them. And they don't necessarily see in themselves leaders because they're not recognizing that description as of a leader and leadership traits and skills as what they truly are, which is incredibly valuable. It's an incredibly valuable skill set. Getting the most out of teams of people is really valuable. So if you have those skills, then you are a leader. But I think for many women, they don't see those, they don't equate those. So they don't put themselves in those positions. I mean, there are many other reasons as well, but I think partly that is part of it.
That's so powerful because then that speaks to both sides. Depending on how we define a leader, that determines who we look for, and depending on how we define a leader, that determines whether or not we'll step up to apply for it. So that's a whole other conversation I think we need to have. But wonderful. So many very relevant themes that you've pulled out that are equally applicable to the school environment, to the home environment as parents with children, and to the corporate environment with how do we lead well? How do we lead with compassion and co-creation and curiosity and the humanity that helps the boat not just go fast, but go further together? Thank you so much, Naima. So many things for us to reflect on and aspire to become in the way that we engage with others and create that environment to thrive in.
I'm delighted with the talk. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm sure our audience have. Just thoughts on how we can enjoy better harmony at home, thrive at work, and win at life, and all those different areas there. So thank you, Naima. Thanks for being with us.
Any final thoughts? Anything that you said, when you came on the show, you wanted to land this point that we've not touched on yet?
I think we probably touched on so many points because I'm a talker. So I just want to say thank you. I love talking about this. I think it's important that we talk about it. I think owning and hearing from representatives of women who are in leadership positions is important for other women. And I think connecting, the school that I described, it was incredibly financially successful. It's a really successful enterprise. And I think owning the connection between being compassionate and caring and having empathetic skills and also being successful in all the other metrics, that they are very tightly interconnected. So I would say to any women, just really believe in that there is a connection there, and it's okay to not fill a stereotypical ideal of what maybe a leader looks like. A leader should be anyone that has the skills and the experience, but also has that compassion and care to get the thing done.
Yeah, to work with and through people. Beautiful. Amazing.
Are there, Naima, are there any resources that you would like to point people to find out a bit more about that, or to connect with you? Is there anything like that there that comes to mind? If not, you can always let us have it. We can put it in the show notes. Any resources you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many amazing people doing great work in this sphere. So maybe, in the show notes would be good, and I can think of a few names.
Perfect. Wonderful.
Amazing.
Great. Well, thank you. Thanks for being with us, and thanks to our audience around the world for listening in. Send us your questions, any questions you have, any ideas you have for other topics you want us to address, perhaps people you'd love to hear from. We'll try and see if we can get them on the show. Why not?
Yeah, indeed. But I think for the moment, it's a wrap. Thank you all.
And goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you did, and you want to hear more, the best thing to do is subscribe. Then you'll never miss an episode. There's a new one every Friday. You can stay connected with us on social media at The 4 Habits for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and to participate in discussions related to the show. We always love to hear from you. And of course, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review on your preferred platform to allow us to reach more listeners and help people around the globe radically transform the way they do relationships so they too can enjoy better harmony at home, thrive at work, and win at life.